Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English, and today we're going to be doing a lesson on the present simple tense. Let's start the lesson. So let's start by looking at the three different forms of the present simple tense. So we're going to have a look at the affirmative, the negative and the question form. So let's start with the affirmative. So we have I work, you work, he, she, it works, we work, and they work. So let's have a quick look at this column here. So we can see it's actually quite easy. All of the forms, so we have I work, which is simple, it's the same as the infinitive. It's the same with you work, this is the infinitive. And this is the only one which changes. This is the important one to look at. So it's the third person singular. So he, she, it works. So you add an S, a letter S to the infinitive. And then we go to we work. So we go back to the infinitive. And they work. So the third person plural is the same. We keep the infinitive. Okay, so let's go through the pronunciation again. So it's I work, you work, he, she, it works, we work, and they work. Okay, now let's have a look at the negative. Sorry, the question. Do I work? Do you work? Does he, she, it work? Do we work? And do they work? So let's have a look at how this one works. So to make it a question, to make the present simple a question, we simply add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So if we compare this one to, the I work, how do we make it a question? Well, it's simple. We just add the word do to it. So I work becomes do I work. You work becomes do you work. And this is the only one, again, it is always the third person singular, which is the one that changes, which is the important one. This is the exception. So in the third person singular, we go from he works to does he work. We go from she works to does she work. And we go from it works to does it work. So we add the word does, not do, we add the word does. We put that before the subject. And we go back to the infinitive. So the actual verb takes the infinitive form. So we take off the letter S and we go back to the infinitive. So we have does he work, does she work, does it work. Then the we form is the same. It's simply we add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So we go to do we work, and then the they form is do they work. So we go from they work becomes do they work. Okay, and obviously in all of these examples, you have to, when you're writing it, you put the question mark. This is what we call the question mark at the end of the sentence to show that we are asking a question. Okay, and when we actually pronounce it, when we speak these words in English, to make it clear that we are asking a question, we very often raise our voice at the end of the sentence. So we say, do I work? Do you work? Does he work? Do we work? Do they work? Okay, so just by slightly raising your voice at the end of the sentence, it underlines the fact that we're asking a question. Okay, now let's have a look at the negative form. I do not work. You do not work. He, she, it does not work. We do not work. And they do not work. Okay, so again, let's compare the negative form to the affirmative form, and let's look at what the rule is. So to go from I work to I do not work, so we add two words to the sentence. So we add the words do not. So the do not goes between the subject, which is I here, and the verb. And we use the infinitive form of the verb for all of them except the third person singular, except the he, she, it form. Okay, so let's go through them again. So the I work becomes I do not work. You work becomes you do not work. So we add the words do not to the sentence between the word you and work. And as always, it is this one, it is the he, she, it form, which is the one that changes. So he works becomes he does not work. So instead of adding do not to the sentence, we add does not. So we add does not, and the form of the verb itself is the infinitive. So we say he does not work, she does not work, it does not work. Okay, so there's no S at the end of work. It's he work, he does not work. Now going on to the we form. So we work becomes we do not work, and they work becomes they do not work. Alright, so to summarize, the present simple form is actually very easy. They all, the affirmative, the question and the negative, they all take the infinitive form of the verb except the third person singular. So the third person singular is this one. It is the he, she, it form. So this is the only one which is different. And in the affirmative form, we add a letter S to the end. So we go from work to works. So he, she, it works. The question form, we add the word do to the beginning of the sentence. So do I work? Do you work? Except for the third person singular form again. So we just add the word does, and we go back to the infinitive. So does he work? We do not say does he works, for example. And finally, the negative form. So again, it is the third person singular form which changes. And here we say he does not work. So we add the word does not, and the actual spelling of the verb itself is the infinitive form. So we use the infinitive form in the negative. We don't add the S on. Okay, so as you can see, the important one to remember is this row here. It really is that this is the only thing really that you have to remember. Okay. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to zoom in slightly on this part here. Because it's the third person singular form which changes, there are a few exceptions to the third person singular form. Okay, this where it says he, she, it works, this is the case probably for 90% of verbs, of English verbs. Okay, but there are a few exceptions, and so on the next slide we're going to have a look at those exceptions. So, as you can see on the title, so as I said on the previous slide, most verbs we simply add an S to the infinitive. So, for example, on the previous slide we have just seen it, we saw it, we say he, she, it works. Okay, so we go from work becomes works. And so this is, as I say, as you can see on the slide, this is the case for most verbs. And another example would be sit. So to sit becomes he, she, or it sits. And it's the same for stay. So we have the verb to stay, and that becomes he stays, or she stays, or it stays. Okay. Now let's have a look at some exceptions. If the infinitive of the verb ends in a consonant and then the letter Y, the rule is the following. We change the Y to an I, and then we add ES. So let's have a look at some examples. So, for example, the verb to cry so becomes he cries. The verb to hurry becomes he hurries, spelt I-E-S at the end. And the verb to reply becomes he replies, again I-E-S at the end. So what we're doing here is this is the rule in practice. So we are changing the Y to an I, and then we're adding ES at the end. Okay. So any word which ends in a consonant and then a Y, this is the case. All right. So I would estimate this is probably about it's probably 10% or less of all verbs. Okay. Now let's have a look at the second exception. So verbs which end in either S, Z, CH, SH, or a letter X. For those verbs, we add an ES to the infinitive. So let's have a look at some examples. So miss becomes misses. So we would have I miss, you miss, he misses. Then the verb watch, we would have I watch, you watch, which then becomes he watches, spelt ES at the end. That's the important thing. It's the spelling as well. It's not just the pronunciation. You have to remember when you're spelling it that you don't just put an S at the end. You have to actually write ES at the end. And then the third example would be a verb like push. Push becomes pushes, okay, with ES at the end. All right. Now let's have a look at the final. The final exception is just some other exceptions which are just completely different. There are 3 of these. So, for example, we have the verb to have, and this one in the third person becomes has. So we would have I have, you have, and then he has, or she has, or it has. Okay, so you don't say it have, or he have, or he has. No, you say he has. Then the verb to go. So the verb to go would be I go, you go, he goes, spelt G-O-E-S. And then the verb to do would go I do, you do, he does. Okay, so you don't say, for example, he do, or he does. It's he does. Okay, so that is it basically. Those are the rules for the different forms that the third person singular can take. And all the other forms, so the I, the you, the we, and the they always take the infinitive form, regardless of any. There are no exceptions to that. So they always take the infinitive form. So this slide here, this presentation here, this screen here, is simply for the different spellings and the different pronunciations of the third person singular forms of the present simple. Okay, so let's move on. So some uses now. So we've looked at the grammar, we've looked at the actual spelling, pronunciation, and forms of the present simple tense. We're now going to look at when do we use the present simple tense. So the main one is we use it for when we are describing a fact or some situation which happens all the time. So a permanent situation, something that happens regularly. So let's look at this. Let's have an example. So cows eat grass. Okay, it's a fact. Cows do not eat hamburgers or cheeseburgers. They eat grass. It's a fact. We are not discussing a particular cow, what a particular cow is doing now. We are talking generally. If we are talking in general about what cows eat, then we use the present simple tense. So we say cow, excuse me, we say cows eat grass. We do not say cows are eating grass. Okay. There is cows are eating grass is grammatically correct, okay, but the meaning is different. Cows are eating grass is an example of the present continuous tense, which we'll look at in a separate video. But the present continuous tense is used for talking about what a particular cow is doing right now. Okay, we can see a cow across the road and we are talking to someone, we are telling somebody next to us, oh, there is a cow, look at that cow over there, it is eating grass, or they are eating grass. That would be then correct. But when we are wanting to describe a fact or a permanent situation, we must use the present simple tense. So that is why we say cows eat grass. It's a fact, so we use the present simple. Another example, water freezes at 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, it's a fact. Okay, it always happens. Water, when it gets to 0 degrees centigrade, it freezes. So we use the present simple. We do not say water is freezing at 0 degrees centigrade. That would be wrong. That's grammatically correct, but the meaning is wrong. Okay, because this is a fact, and we mean to say that water always freezes at 0 degrees centigrade, so we use the present simple. Let's have a look at another example. Okay, so for example, if somebody asked us, if somebody wanted to know, where does Peter work every day? What is his job? Does he work in a hotel? Does he work in a hospital? Does he work in a factory? No, Peter works in an office. It's a fact. He always works in an office. Okay, so we're talking about what Peter does permanently, what he does all the time. We're not asking, if we're not asking what Peter is doing now. We're asking, where does Peter work? And so we answer using the present simple tense. Peter works in an office. Okay? So when we want to say this, we do not say Peter is working in an office. Again, that sentence is grammatically correct, but the meaning is something else. The meaning of Peter is working in an office, that means he's working in an office now, but maybe in a few minutes' time he'll be working outside. Okay, so the present continuous is used for temporary situations, or something which is happening now but might not be happening in a few minutes or a few days' time. But this one, Peter works in an office, this is used for a permanent situation. This is describing a fact. Peter works in an office. Oh, just for information, this is a photograph from a very, very good movie called Office Space. I really recommend you, if you like comedy films, I strongly recommend you watch this film. It's called Office Space, so look it up. It's very, very funny. The character in the photograph is he's the boss. He's the manager of an office, and he's very, very funny. So on this slide, we're going to have a look at another major use of the present simple tense. Excuse me. And it's for things that happen regularly, repeatedly, or all the time. Okay, so something that's a habit, something that occurs or happens regularly or often. So again, let's have a look at some examples. For example, we can say, I play football every week. So something that happens regularly, so something that happens every week, we use the present simple tense. We cannot say, I am playing football every week. That is wrong. That is actually grammatically wrong, because we are saying every week. So that means it's something that's happened regularly. And when we're talking about something that happens regularly or all the time, we must use the present simple tense. Okay, there's no exceptions to that rule. Okay, so I play football every week is correct, and I am playing football every week it is wrong. That is actually quite a big mistake in English to say that. So let's have a look at another example. This time we're using the question form just to get some practice using the questions in the present simple. So we would say, do you go to church every Sunday? Okay, so the every Sunday indicates that it's something that happens regularly. And so because we're asking a question about something that happens regularly, we must use the present simple. So we say, do you go to church? We cannot say, are you going to church every Sunday? That is wrong. That is grammatically wrong to say that or to write that. We are talking about every Sunday, so we cannot use the present continuous tense. We must use the present simple tense. So for the pronunciation again, let's do it again. So do you go to church every Sunday? And the third example here would be my father washes his car once a month. So once a month we indicates that this is something that happens regularly, and so we must use the present simple tense. And this example, as you can see, it's an example we are using the third person singular, and if you remember, this is one of those irregular verbs that we saw on a previous slide. Because the infinitive of the verb ends in sh, the third person singular, we add es. Okay, we don't just add an s, we add es to the end. So my father washes his car once a month. And again, because we're talking about once a month, we do not use the present continuous form. So this sentence here at the bottom is wrong. We cannot say my father is washing his car once a month. Okay, so those are the main two uses of the present simple. So on the previous slide we had for expressing facts and permanent situations, and on this slide we are looking at things that happen regularly, repeatedly. So I would say those two uses are probably 95, maybe more, 95% of the times that we use the present simple. The next slide is another example, but these are less common, I suppose. These are probably instances where you will hear the present simple tense being used, but probably not necessarily using it yourself in these cases. But the present simple you often hear used when somebody is giving a demonstration of a product, or doing a training course, or describing a series of events. Okay, or commentary as well. Very often commentary on the radio when it's live commentary. For example, a football match. The commentator often uses the present simple. So let's have a look at these. So for example, if someone was demonstrating some software on a computer training. So if somebody was, as you can see on the photograph on the right, the person, the man with the blue shirt is showing, he's demonstrating to the other people how to use some software. So he would be saying there, I double click on the text to highlight it, and then I click on the delete button. Okay. He wouldn't be saying I am double clicking. Okay. It's not a big mistake. He could do. Okay. There's a red cross there to say that that's wrong, but it's not a big mistake. Okay. It's just not as good as using the present simple. Okay. So don't be too worried about about this. The present simple is better when doing a demonstration or some training, but it's not a big mistake to use the present continuous. You can probably use both, but it's better to use the present simple in those instances. So another example would be when someone, you often hear it when you see cooking on television, for example, or someone is showing you how to do a cooking a recipe. So someone would say, for example here, first I take a bowl and pour a cup of milk into it. Next I break 2 eggs and then put the eggs in the bowl. Okay, so you wouldn't really hear first I am taking a bowl. It just doesn't sound right. It's again, it's not a big mistake. You can use the present continuous. It's not a big mistake, but it's better to use the present simple when demonstrating something. And again, as I said before, it's you often hear it in sports live commentary. So, for example, this is some example commentary from the Liverpool team. I'm a big supporter. I'm a supporter of Liverpool Football Club. So Gerrard is a Liverpool player and Suarez is a Liverpool player. So the commentator would say something like, Gerrard passes to Suarez, Suarez runs with the ball and passes back to Gerrard, who shoots and scores. So all of these verbs here, you can see passes, runs, passes, shoots, scores. As you can see, they are all present simple. It's quite an easy explanation of why commentators use the present simple when doing live commentary. It's for the basic reason that it's quicker. It's quicker to say Gerrard passes to Suarez. It's quicker to say that than Gerrard is passing to Suarez, because it's obviously the action is happening very quickly. So the commentator, Gerrard passes, that's 2 words, whereas Gerrard is passing, that's it's 3 words, and there's much more. There's more syllables as well. So it's for speed as much as anything. It's you can imagine the commentator having to say Gerrard is passing to Suarez, and then Suarez is running with the ball, and then is passing back to, it's too long, so it doesn't sound right. Okay. So very, very often in live commentary you will hear commentators always using the present simple. Okay, so this next slide, it's a little bit more complicated. This is just a couple of exceptions now to the main rule. So, as we mentioned earlier, the present simple tense is often used for permanent situations. If you remember, we said it's used for saying things like the birds fly south for the winter. That's a permanent situation. That doesn't change. And we also said that normally temporary situations, or situations which are happening now, normally we use the present continuous form for those situations. But there are just a few exceptions, okay? And this is what we are talking about here. There are a few exceptions where we use the present simple tense to express what is happening now in a temporary situation. And that's what we're going to look at now. But don't worry, there are only a few examples of this happening, and you'll understand straight away, I think. So, this is what I've just been saying. To describe temporary situations and things happening right now, we usually use the present continuous tense. So, let's have a look at that example. So if we wanted to ask someone right now, where they are going, we would say, where are you going? So we want to know, where are they going now? So that is why we use the present continuous. And they would answer, well, now I'm going out to a restaurant. So as you can see, that is this is the present continuous. This isn't the present simple. This is present continuous. And then they would say, I am driving my car to the restaurant. And again, this is happening now, so this is why we use the present continuous. The waitress is taking my order. And again, this is now, we use the present continuous. I am tasting the wine. So again, this is happening now, so we use the present continuous. But there are a few exceptions. And we sometimes can only use the present simple to express something that is happening now, or something which is temporary. And so, for example, if we wanted, so we've just tasted the wine, and if we wanted to say, well, we like the wine, we say, I like this wine, okay, which is the present simple. But we're saying, I like it now. This is temporary, I might not like it tomorrow, I might not like another wine, but this particular wine, I like it. And so normally you would think, well, we would use the present continuous because it's temporary, but no, this is one of the exceptions. So a verb like to like, we use the present simple. Okay, we do not say, I am liking this wine. I am liking this wine. Oh, yes, okay, it's happening now. It's a temporary situation. But that is wrong. That is grammatically wrong. Because verbs like this, like I like, or I love, or I hate, it's very often verbs which express some sort of an emotion or mental state, which can only take the present simple tense. Okay, so there are some verbs which never exist in the present continuous. So we have to always use the present simple forms of certain verbs. So that's what I'm saying here. Therefore, there are a few verbs which are never, or very rarely, used in the continuous form. They are only used in the simple form. And so let's just have a quick look at what some of those verbs are. So this is a list of the most common verbs which are only used in the simple form. So we have ones like believe, doubt, feel. Okay, you can see them there. I'll go through them just so that you have the correct pronunciation. So we have believe, doubt, feel, imagine, know, like, love, hate, prefer, realize, recognize, remember, see, suppose, think, understand, want, and wish. There are others, but there aren't many others. These are the most common ones, the most common exceptions, I think. There are a few others. If you want the full list, then just write a comment below the video and I can give you the full list if that's of interest to you. There's probably about another 15 or 20 more at the most, but these are the most important ones to remember. Okay. So if you look at them, you can notice that most of them are expressing some kind of an emotion or some kind of mental state. Okay? And that is why they can only take the present simple. Okay. So, for example, let me give you a couple of examples, and I'm sure you'll understand. So we would say, this chocolate cake is nice. I want another piece, please. Now, although this is happening now and it's a temporary situation, we're not expressing a fact here. However, so you would think normally we would use the present continuous form, but we don't, because it's a verb on this list, and the verb want can only take the present simple form. Okay, so in other words, we cannot say I am wanting another piece, please. That is just wrong. You would never say I am wanting something or he is wanting something. You would say he wants. Okay, and basically what we're saying here is it's a fact now. Okay, so something is. It's usually yes. It's something if you're expressing some sort of an emotion or some sort of a mental state, then most likely that the verb must go in the present simple form. Another example would be, if you're saying, I love it, or if you want to tell someone that you love them, if you're wanting to say to your wife, I love you, or to your husband, I love you, then you would say, I love you. You never say I am loving you. That's just it's just wrong. It's grammatically wrong. Okay, so you would only say I love it, or I love him, or I love her, or I love you. Present simple. You cannot say I am loving it. Okay, that is wrong. Now then, question for you all. Does this remind you of anything? This sentence, this phrase, I am loving it? Where have you seen that before? I'm sure some of you have seen that before. If some of you have travelled to America maybe, or to an English-speaking country, or somewhere, there is a very big multinational company which actually has this sentence, I am loving it, as their company marketing slogan. Does anyone know it? Let me give you a clue. Yep, McDonald's. So, the company, the fast food restaurant, McDonald's, actually have the phrase or the sentence, I am loving it. That is their company slogan. That is their marketing message. But it is wrong. It is, and it's a very controversial. It's a controversial thing because a lot of English teachers, including myself, don't like it because as I say, it's wrong, and it's very irresponsible of a large corporation like McDonald's, I think, to have a grammatically wrong sentence as part of their marketing message. But anyway, that's another debate. Just coming back to these exceptions, so these verbs which never take the present continuous form, can only take the present simple. Sometimes in America, you will hear, in American English, sometimes you will hear people actually using the present continuous with some of these verbs. Okay, so in America, it's not everybody, but some people are, and it's becoming more and more perhaps acceptable to do that, but the general rule is that it's wrong. So the very strict grammatical rule says that it is wrong to use any of these verbs in the present continuous form, that they should be used only in the present simple. Okay, but if you do hear it, it would probably be in America. It's in England or in Europe, then it would be very unusual to hear these verbs here on this list being used in the present continuous. It would be very unusual. Right, so let's move on to some exercises then. So as I said at the beginning of the training course, I like using exercises. I like giving you exercises. I think it's more fun. Keeps you active, and I think you learn most by actually doing rather than just listening and noting things down. I think by actually being active and doing exercises, I think this is how you learn the most. So you're going to need some pen and paper. So if you haven't got one, then pause the video now, go and get a pen and video, and then come back. Okay, so let's move on to some exercises then. And so the first one is putting the verbs in brackets in the correct present simple form. So, for an example, here in the gap here, so we've got the word I, and then there's a gap, and you have to fill that gap with one of the choices in the brackets. So you have to put in there either I wash or I washes my hair every evening. So you have to decide which of the two forms is correct here. So can you have a guess? Well, the answer is, that's right, it's I wash. So we say I wash my hair every evening. So that's the correct form for the first person singular of the verb to wash. Okay. So for the rest of these exercises, you're going to see the question. So you're going to see the sentence, and then you will get 10 seconds. Okay, so 10 seconds after the answer will appear in red. Okay, so if you need more than 10 seconds, you're going to have to pause the video once you see the sentence. Okay, because the answer in red will appear after 10 seconds automatically. Okay, so let's go through them. So the first one is, so you've got 10 seconds before the answer comes. Okay, so the answer is you run 3 miles before work. Next one. So you've got 10 seconds. So David takes the train to go to work. Question 3. We have 2 cars. Question 4. My parents often help me with my homework. Question 5. Her baby cries all the time. And the spelling here is important. So as you can see, we had 3 options here. You had cries, C-R-Y-S, C-R-Y, cry, or cries. So these 2 are pronounced the same but spelt differently. And if you remember, this is the rule that we saw on, I think it was the second slide at the beginning of the lesson, where if the infinitive ends in the consonant and the letter Y, then remember we change the Y to an I and add ES. So that's why, so cries, C-R-Y-S, that's why that is wrong. Okay, so those are all the answers. So that was exercise number 1. Let's move on to exercise 2. So this one is similar, except this time I'm asking you now to put the following sentences in the negative form. For example, I wash my hair every evening. That's the affirmative. And when we put that in the negative form, the answer is, I do not wash my hair every evening. Okay. So, same as before, I'm going to give you the question. You'll see the question appear on the screen. And you will have 10 seconds to write the answer down. Again, if 10 seconds isn't enough for you, then you can just pause the video after every question. So let's start. Question 1. And the answer is, you do not run 3 miles before work. Question 2. David does not take the train to go to work. Question 3. We do not have 2 cars. Question 4. My parents do not often help me with my homework. Question 5. Her baby does not cry all the time. So that is the last exercise for the negative form. Let's move on now to the next set of exercises. And this time I'm going to ask you to put the following sentences in their question form. Let's have a look at an example. Example, I wash my hair every evening. And that in the question form would be, do I wash my hair every evening? So if you remember, we add the word do to the beginning of the sentence, and we add the question mark at the end of the sentence. And if you remember, the third person singular is the only one which changes, and the third person singular, if you remember, we would say, does he wash his hair every evening? That would be if it was a third person singular. So anyway, let's have a look. Let's start the exercises for you. So question number 1. Do you run 3 miles before work? Question 2. Does David take the train to go to work? Question 3. Do we have 2 cars? Question 4. Do my parents often help me? Question 5. Does her baby cry all the time? Okay, so that's the end of the question form exercises. So if you look at them, if you look at all those answers on the page, you can see it's quite easy. On all of them, you just add the word do to the beginning of the sentence, and then you put the question mark at the end. And the only exception to that is, as always, it's the third person singular. And for the third person singular, you add the word does. So you add the word does to the beginning of the sentence, and then the actual verb itself, it takes the infinitive form. Okay, so that's all you need to do. So that's it. So that's the rule. And now let's just have the final exercise, which is quite a quick one. Final exercise. I'm going to give you two sets of sentences, and one of them is right and one of them is wrong. You have to tell me which one is right and which one is wrong. For example, one of these sentences is right and one of them is wrong. So the first sentence is, dogs move faster than snails, or dogs are moving faster than snails. Which of those two sentences is correct, and from a grammatical point of view, and which one is wrong? Well, the first one is right, and the second one is wrong. And the reason is, it's because we're discussing a fact here. We're discussing a permanent situation. Dogs, move faster than snails. It's a fact. It's always the case. A snail is never going to move faster than a dog. So it's a fact. It's a permanent situation. So we use the present simple tense. We must use the present simple tense. And it's the first sentence which is in the present simple. The second sentence is using the present continuous. So that is wrong. So again, let's have a go. Let's have a look. Question 1. Water is boiling at 100 degrees centigrade, or water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. So, you have to tell me which one is right and which one is wrong. Okay. So, which one is it? Well, here's the answer. It's a fact. Again, it's water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. It's always going to happen like that. It's permanent. So we use the present simple. So again, you've got 10 seconds here. If you need more than 10 seconds, then pause the video. So one of these is right and one of these is wrong. So here's the answer coming up now. So the one which is right is the first one. She's smiling at the man because she likes him. So although it's happening now, it's a temporary situation. Normally, we would think that we would use the present continuous. And in fact, the beginning of the sentence uses the present continuous. But when we use the verb like, as we saw in one of the slides, this is one of those verbs that can only take the present simple form. Okay, so it's an emotion, it's a mental state, so we can only use the present simple form. So we say she likes him, and that is why the second one is wrong. Okay, we cannot say she's smiling at the man because she's liking him. She is liking him. That is wrong. You would never hear that. You would never write that. You would never say that. Question 3. Which sentence is right and which one is wrong? Okay, so while you're thinking about this, try and remember what we looked at of the particular uses of the present simple tense. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer. There you go. So if you remember, one of the main uses of the present simple tense is to describe a situation that happens regularly, or on a regular basis. Something that is a habit, and that is what we have here. We are describing what my children do every evening. So we must use the present simple tense. We are describing something that happens regularly. So we must not use the present continuous. We must only use the present simple. So we can only say that my children watch television every evening. That is correct. Question 4. Okay, so we are now answering a question. What do they do after watching television? And they do their homework is the correct answer. Again, we are asking what they do after watching television. We are asking what they do on a regular basis. So we must use the present simple, which is why they do their homework is the correct answer. A little hint, a tip for you here is when someone asks you a question, if you hear a question and there is the word do in the question, or the word does, then that tells you that the question is being asked in the present simple. It's being asked, it must be in the present simple tense if there is the word do or the word does in the question. Okay? So if you hear one of those words, then your answer must also be in the present simple. Okay? So that's quite a useful hint for you. That's quite a useful tip for you. Okay? And the last question, question 5. So the answer is, now this time we must use the present continuous. We must not use the present simple. And the reason is because look at the question. The question is using the present continuous. If you look at it, it's saying, where is he going? There's ing. Where is he going? So the question is being asked in using the present continuous form. So the answer that we give must also be in the present continuous, which is why the second sentence is correct. He is going to the cinema. Okay? We're talking about something that is happening now. We're not talking about in general. We're not talking about a fact. We're not talking about a permanent situation. So we do not use the present simple in this case. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of my lesson. That's the end of my first YouTube English video for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed giving it. As I said, my objective is to do 2 or 3 lessons like this with exercises and games and questions for you, to do 2 or 3 of these a week. But I need to know whether you like it, so I need to know whether this is good or whether you like it, and whether you like the exercises or not. So if you like this video, and if you would like more of these free English lessons by me, then it's free, completely free, but all I'm asking you is just for 3 things. I'm asking you just to please subscribe to my channel. So if you click on that red subscribe button below this video, below the description, and then click on the little thumbs up icon, tell me that you like the video. That will encourage me to do more. That will show me that you enjoy it and that you would like more. And leave a comment. You know, it's I really enjoy giving these videos. I would like you know, to have some discussion with you. You know, if you want to ask a question, please ask a question in the comments, or just leave a comment, say you like it, or say what you don't like as well. You know, if there's something I can improve. Is the sound quality good? Am I speaking too quickly? Am I speaking too slowly? Is the video too long? Is the video too short? You know, tell me what you think. But leave a comment, as I say, and I will answer. You know, if there is a question in the comment, I will promise to answer you. Okay, so it's important for me to, you know, I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy talking with my students. As I say, this is my first video, but I'm going to be doing 2 or 3 a week. So please leave a comment and tell me what you think. Thanks very much. And this is the end of the video. Thanks.